Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maivi and I am a environment and climate change expert, and what we are doing in this channel at the moment is reviewing all the books that have been nominated for the Climate Fiction Prize. In this opportunity, I'm going to review the last one of those books that I read, the fifth on the shortlist, which is composed of 5 books. So it's the very last one, which is The Morningside by Tia Obreht. This book is very much a dystopia. It's settled in a world in which the sea level has risen as expected. This particular story is about an 11-year-old girl named Sylvia, who is the narrator of the story. And Sylvia and her mom are just arriving when the book starts, arriving to a new place. It's a city called Island City, and this city is half submerged underwater. And when they arrive to the city, they move into a place called the Morningside, which is a high-rise building, which originally was a very luxurious place, but now it's kind of in a state of decay. The reason why they moved into the Morningside is because Sylvia's aunt, called Anna, she is a superintendent in this building, and they move in with her and they kind of help her around with the maintenance of the place. And I would say this book is not very plot heavy, so it very much frames the situation in which they're in. And there are a couple of things, there are a few things that are relevant to their situation. The first thing is that they're moving to Island City from a place called Paraíso. It's not very clear what Paraíso is. It might be a refugee camp, or it might be another city, or it might be a station of some kind. It's not very clear what it is, but what it is clear is that that's not where they're from. So they had been temporarily in Paraíso as kind of a journey, but they come from a place that is only referred to as back home. The place where they come from is never named. And the first language that they speak and that they speak with each other, it's also not referred in the book, but it's also always referenced as hours. They speak in hours. The other thing about their situation is that Syl's mom is quite a secretive person, and she doesn't really talk very much about the place where they come from. It's also not specified, or at least I don't recall, if Syl was born back home or if she was born once they left. But the thing is that Syl, as an 11-year-old girl, she doesn't really know anything about the place where she comes from, and she doesn't really know anything about their culture either. But when they arrive to the Morningside, Anna, her aunt, is completely the opposite. She's very talkative and she keeps talking about the place that they come from. So she learns about the culture, she learns about particularly mythical tales about the place from her aunt Anna. Another thing that is very relevant to their situation is that they arrived to Island City through something called the repopulation program. So Island City, being a city that is half submerged underwater, it's pretty much a place in decay, in decline. So the city has created this scheme to kind of promote immigration and bring more people in to repopulate the city, as the name suggests. However, there's not a lot of support actually from this scheme once they arrive there. And Syl tries to enlist to school, but there is a very long waiting list and she's not able to attend school. And because of that, she spent her days kind of going around and exploring this huge building. And the last thing that I want to mention, and it's probably what this book is mostly about, is that because Seal is this lonely girl that is by herself exploring this building, maybe due to boredom, but also to all these mythical tales that she's been hearing from her aunt. She becomes obsessed with the woman that lives in the top floor in the penthouse of the building. And she kind of believes that this woman is some sort of creature with supernatural powers. And she has 3 dogs, and she has some wild theories about what those dogs are. So normally at this point, I will dive into how is this book relevant to climate change. But in this opportunity, I'm going to start the other way around, and I'm going to talk about my reading experience. I think this book lacked a lot of editing. And again, I am coming at this book as a piece of climate fiction. This is what I'm expecting. And in that sense, I think that choosing Seal as the main character, as the narrative voice, was an error. I think she's the least interesting character from all the characters in this book. Much of this book, I would say at least half of these pages, are dedicated at exploring the imagination of this girl and the obsession that she has with this woman and the powers that this woman could potentially have. I've heard this mentioned as a book that has magical realism. I don't think that is it, because nothing magical actually happens. We're not expected at any point to think that something magical could happen at any point. We're just locked into this girl's obsession, and this is a very innocent girl, and I'm so sorry to say it's a very gullible girl. I think 11 years old, it's a little bit too old to believe the things that she believes. I also don't believe that the voice of the character was very well achieved. I was not believing that the narrative voice was an 11-year-old girl in the way that she spoke. And I don't know, it really didn't work for me. If I compare this to other books, I know comparison is not fair, but if I compare this to the book that I read previously, which was And So I Roar, and also The Girl with the Louding Voice, in which we are reading from a perspective of a 14-year-old girl and a 15-year-old girl in the second book, I totally believed that that was the perspective of a girl that age going through those circumstances. Even if I compare with books like The Bee Sting by Paul Murray, again, there is a character there that is, his name is CJ, I think, or PJ, who is, again, a young boy. I think he's probably 11 years old as well. I completely believed that what I was reading was the point of view of a boy that age. I don't think this was achieved in this book. I couldn't believe the age of the character. There was also some other characters in this book that could have been potentially the right choice to be the narrative voice. For example, one of the characters is Bessie Duras, who is actually the woman that lives in the penthouse and that our main character is obsessed with. Seal is obsessed with her. We see very little of her, but this is a woman that she is a very wealthy, privileged woman. She is also from back home, but she arrived to Island City long time before all this crisis started. So she has a very interesting perspective, and she has a lot of very strong opinions about the repopulation program. She refers to embezzlement within the program. She refers to corruption within the program. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to say much about it. But we have literally like just one page dedicated to her own point of view, which that is exactly what I wanted. That's what I want to hear. Tell me about the corruption. Tell me about what's going on. Tell me about how they're taking advantage of vulnerable people. I want to know what's going on. And we don't see anything. We briefly heard about it, and then that's left aside, like it's completely unimportant. There is also another character in this book. He's referred to with a couple of names. I think his last name is May, and his nickname is Lamb. So we hear about him with those different names, and we see his story. His story is included here of how he arrived in the city. There was a horrible tragedy that he weirdly got involved with, and we learn about other things later on that about who he is. And I think his life was much more interesting. It could have been a much richer story if we learn everything from the perspective of that character. And something else that caught my attention is that I should say I recently read where is it? Here, this book here. Tuppence Middleton's book about her experience with OCD, and this is still very present in my mind. I highly recommend this book. It's very, very good. And this girl, Seal, she seems to have OCD as well. She has some rituals that she does, and she believes that those rituals kind of protect her and her family. She has this tendency to count to three, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, out of the blue. So that led me to think maybe she has some level of OCD, but that's not mentioned here. That's not explored at all. There's no engagement with that. Like, we see those things coming up, but I don't know. There's no exploration. It's very, very. It's all very shallow. I don't know. It really didn't work for me. And last but not least, if we should make kind of like a bullet point of how this novel relates to climate change. Obviously, climate change is something that is kind of around the book, around the story, because they are in a city that is flooded. The tides, for example, are a feature in this city. When the tide is too high, there's areas of the city that are submerged underwater, and then if the tide goes quite low, there are areas that emerge every now and then. So that is a feature of the city that they are living in. And there is at some point a story about a whale that depicts that particular aspect of the city. The other very relevant thing is that obviously Seal and her mom are climate refugees. This is a topic that has come up again and again in different books from the Climate Fiction Prize nominees. And I'm going to let a link up here and also in the description box below about to a video in which I address specifically this topic of climate refugees. And the last thing is, as I mentioned before, there is a very brief reference to the kind of corruption going on as part of the repopulation program, and how these kind of schemes that are supposed to help people, they actually don't, and it's just another way for the powerful to be more powerful and the wealthy to be more wealthy, as it clearly it is at the moment. What I would say is that nothing is really explored in too much depth. There are these elements here and there, but we don't really see anything properly explored. So unfortunately, this book didn't really work for me. I rated it 2.5. A book that I rate in the area of 2 stars is a book that I struggle to finish and that I am tempted quite often to DNF. And that was my experience with this book. It got more interesting at the end, I should say. It never went to where I wanted it to go. But this book being 285 pages long, I think is probably 200 pages too long. I would have enjoyed the aspect of this book without the main character, if that makes sense. Which it doesn't. yeah, it's not very promising. So that has been my review of the last novel from the shortlist. The next video I'm going to upload is going to be kind of an overview of all the books, and also a little bit of a prediction of which one I potentially think it might be the winner. So stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.